Good morning. Good to be with you today as we continue our study of God's Word. Today, because it's Christmas week, we are going to shift from Ezekiel to the second chapter of Matthew, which discusses the pursuit of the Magi to follow Jesus. And so let's begin with the first verse of the second chapter, where Matthew writes, "After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi came from the east to Jerusalem and asked, 'Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews?'" Well, let's stop there and back up a little bit. Jesus was born in Bethlehem probably somewhere between 6 and 5 BC. Bethlehem was a very small community about 5 miles south of Jerusalem. The Magi had come from the east, and it could be Persia or one of the other eastern countries, but they were aware, probably because of some of the Jews that were still in exile in Babylon, and they had heard the stories about the Messiah coming. They had anticipated the birth of this Christ child. In Micah, the 5th chapter and the 2nd verse, Micah prophesies that the Messiah child would be born in Bethlehem. So it was expected, it was anticipated, it was hoped for. And the Magi had learned and had come from the east to see this Christ child, to worship this Christ child. Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? Now, we say, oops, we've got two kings here. We've got King Herod, and we've got Jesus, the King of the Jews. Well, King Herod, that was a designation given to him in about 40 BC by the Roman Senate. It was not well accepted and not accepted at all by the Jews because he was an illegitimate king. He was one appointed by their captors. So we saw here at least a continuing disagreement or difference between the Jews and the Roman government. And it says, continuing, "We saw his star in the east and have come to worship him." There's no question the world was expecting the Messiah. But this is interesting to me. We saw his star in the east and came to worship him. How did they know that? What was the significance of a star in the heavens? Was it because of its altitude, because of its particular shape? The Magi studied astrology. Perhaps they recognized some difference in this star, but the Magi were perhaps 2 days' travel away from Bethlehem. But to identify this particular star over Bethlehem or wherever it was that the Magi saw it and knew that it was the star representing the Messiah, and to follow it is quite an incredible feat. We saw his star in the east and have come to worship him. When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all of Jerusalem with him. Now, King Herod was the standard bearer for paranoia. Any little threat to his kingdom, or more exactly, his kingship, would send him into a rage, so much so that he killed his wife, he killed 2 sons, he killed anyone that was a threat, as he saw it, to his throne. And of course, knowing his paranoia, knowing his rage, knowing how dangerous he was, then of course if he's upset, then all of Jerusalem is upset along with him. So he placed no value on human life. It was all about King Herod. Now, admittedly, he did a great deal in terms of building structures and in Jerusalem, and he was in fact responsible for the early renovation of the temple. But aside from that, he was ruthless. In verse 4, he said, when he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Christ child was to be born. These leaders were the religious people, the Sadducees, the elders, the scribes being responsible for translating and recording the words of God. But he called them all together, and he asked them where the Christ was to be born. In Bethlehem, in Judea, they replied, for this is what the prophet has written. And this was 700 years earlier. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will be the shepherd of my people Israel. And so what Herod was trying to do was to find out where the Christ child was. He says that he wants to worship him, but in fact he wants to kill him. So he asked these leaders, where is this Christ? Where is this King of the Jews that was born in the land of Judah? He was concerned about his own kingdom. And so he searches them out. Then in verse 7, Matthew writes, then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. So he wanted to determine exactly how old the Christ child would be at this time. So he got the location because he inquired of his scribes and the leaders where this Christ child was supposed to be born, and now he's narrowed it down to the time that he was born so he could determine the age of the Christ child. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and make a careful search for the child, as opposed to baby. The words are not the same in the Hebrew language. As soon as you find him, report to me so that I may go and worship him. Well, I don't think so. But this was the thought that Herod had put forth, that here is the long-expected Messiah, and I want to go worship him. So find out exactly how old he is, where he is, let me know, and then I'll go worship him. Not so. He wanted to remove the threat from his kingship. Verse 9 says, after they had heard the king, they went on the way, and the star they had seen in the east went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. It's very interesting because, as we know from looking up in the evening and seeing a star, to use it perhaps millions of miles away to pinpoint a house, an exact location of someone would be impossible. So where was the star? Was it 100 feet in the air? Did it have a particular shape? Very interesting that they used this star as a guide to the exact house where Jesus was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. Can you imagine? Here were magi, 2 days travel from Bethlehem. The star appeared again to guide them, and they were overjoyed. They were overwhelmed. Now, these were not Hebrews. These were scientists or people that studied the cosmos, astrology. Yet they were overjoyed that they saw the star that would lead them to Jesus. Not the bad shepherds that had permeated Egypt and the early days of the Hebrews, but the good shepherd that would lead his flock. On coming to the house, now Jesus was perhaps a couple of years old at this point, and he was no longer in the manger in the stable where Mary had laid him, but Joseph and Mary and Jesus had moved out. They were now in a house somewhere in Bethlehem. On coming to the house, they saw the child and his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshiped him. Now, it's interesting here, and as you probably are aware of your study of Scripture and modern religions, that some have lifted up Mary as divine. But we see clearly here that they bowed down and worshiped him. They worshiped Jesus. They did not worship Mary. They did not worship Joseph. In fact, it would be a serious affront, a serious case of blasphemy for the Jew to worship a human. So the Magi worshiped Christ, not Mary. They opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold and incense and myrrh. Now these are symbolic. Gold could be deity or a king. Frankincense was used in making perfume. It was also a sign of purity. Myrrh was used in the embalming procedure. It was characterized as saving death in some of the commentaries. So these treasures would be appropriate for the Jewish family. And they were gifts. Now, there were 3 gifts, and that perhaps is where we get the idea that there were 3 wise men. It's not necessarily the case. One of them could have brought 2 gifts, but for simplicity, there were 3 gifts given by each of the Magi, and they gave them to him. And having been warned in a dream, verse 12 says, not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. Now, interesting is that dreams were a way to communicate, that God used to communicate to people, as well as visions, as well as speaking directly. But here, God spoke to the Magi, a foreign people, but he spoke to the Magi through a dream. He also used them to protect the Christ child. He said, don't go back the way you came. Don't go back to Herod, but I want you to go home a different route. Take another way home, because Herod is up to no good. He wants to kill the Christ child. He doesn't want to worship him, as he said. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. So as we celebrate this Christmas season, as we look at this story of the Magi, we see and hear the birth of the Good Shepherd that came to not only shepherd his flock, but to provide an opportunity for salvation. We see that he is the Good Shepherd, not the bad shepherd. He is the one that was sent by God just at the right time to offer his people salvation. So as we celebrate this Christmas season, as we imitate the Magi by presenting gifts to one another, let us remember that Jesus is the reason for the season. Jesus' birth is what we celebrate this week. And I wish you all the very best, the very merriest of Christmases as you celebrate this joy with your friends and family. Let's pray together. Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the time that we have together to study your word. Thank you, Father, especially for the word that you've given us that allows us to study history and to understand more the benefit of knowing you and being a part of your kingdom. Father, I lift up those that are separated from their family at this time, perhaps are in the hospital or recovering from surgery and not really at the top of their game. I just pray, Father, that the peace and joy of this season would surround them and that you would love them bountifully. Father, I just pray for our churches during this special and blessed time of year and those that lead them. Father, we ask all of these things in the mighty name of Jesus. And all God's children said, Amen. God bless you.